Hello everyone at TubeBuddy, I am Andrew Can and I am joined with someone very special. You may have seen him on our major group live stream. You may have seen the interview I did with him, but here he is, Joshua. Joshua, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hey guys, yeah, sorry, I have my other monitor going over here. So I basically have been on YouTube since about 2010, but I've always, or no, it started in 15. Sorry, take over, lie. This is why I needed you, Andrew. This is why I needed you.
It's okay,
Or
we got
maybe I'm
this.
just trying to disrupt and show my human side so I can tell a better story. Who
Hmm.
knows? But I've basically been a web video producer since about 2009. I've worked for companies that were streaming e-learning, technology, infomercials, stuff like that across the webs, the internet before Netflix even got into the web, the internet streaming game. And essentially, since about 2012 in my video production company, I noticed all my clients were just using YouTube to host their videos and then start doing advertising. So I kind of started on the side messing around with YouTube, figuring it out. Like, what was it? Because when I was in film school, it had just started. There were sneezing panda videos. There were people showing funny depositions. And I'm like, how can a business use this? And then as I kind of just sat there, I saw more and more creators creating content. And as we've gone now on, I think YouTube is about 14, 15 years old now. We've seen several cycles, and we're definitely at the cycle where instead of just getting stuff on YouTube and then just optimizing it with the best tags and keywords and all the little hacks that we used to know, we're back in the cycle to where your story really matters. And you need story to grow your audience, to engage viewers, and to really build a full time career out of YouTube, which I know is something a lot of creators struggle with. So today, I wanted to kind of sit here and talk about the 5 things that pretty much every creator can look at and kind of self audit themselves to learn how to tell better stories and some different practical techniques that you guys can take with you and start using and apply to your channel right now. And also, I'm going to show you some analytics that you need to be looking at so that way you can go and see and make these decisions not based on what you think or what your cousin's telling you who watches your YouTube channel or your mom, but real life data and how people are interacting with your content. So, my first question, I kind of just wanted to get some audience participation right now, is when do you guys think that you are starting to pitch your story? At like what point in the process? Is it like a minute into your video? Is it the first 30 seconds? Is it in your channel art? Just comment real quick in the chat and start telling us where you think you start pitching your story and you start telling your story. And I'm going to kind of look at my other monitor, see what's going on over here.
And I think that's a really great question, especially like when do you believe in your video you're pitching your story, just to make sure I understand the question, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Beanie already said first frame. Somebody said in the thumbnail title. We got some hellos, got some big TubeBuddy fans coming online right here.
Welcome,
Somebody said
Daniel.
right away. And then a lot of people are starting to agree. And it seems like we have a general consensus really quickly that it's in the title and thumbnail. And that's actually true. So I'm glad a lot of people have been talking about this lately. I can tell that you guys are listening to all of us on the live streams. But yes, you start pitching your value as soon as a potential viewer sees your thumbnail and your title.
Absolutely.
And now, for the first time, we can actually see metrics on how people are engaging with our thumbnail and titles just through Studio Beta underneath the reach viewers. So if you go into Studio Beta, just go to reach viewers and you have the impression funnel. This information is gold. We used to spend thousands upon ten thousands of dollars every month for clients just to get these metrics through AdWords. And now every single creator can get it for free. So you absolutely start pitching your story right then and there. Um, the other question I wanted to kind of throw out to the audience before we really started diving in this, just so you guys know the direction I'm going right away, is when you're creating your YouTube content, are you just sitting down? I have to create something. This is what comes out of my mouth. and then I edit this and I upload it to YouTube and pray for, millions of views? Or are you thinking along the lines of a three-act structure, a beginning, middle, end, some sort of story arc that you are taking your viewers along a journey with you? So let's kind of see some quick polling. So, are you thinking along the lines of a three-act structure? And I'll just kind of keep my eye over here on the chat.
And I think that's an interesting point, especially when it comes to you and I come from a traditional storytelling background. So when we do videos here at TubeBuddy, for example, we always go in with a script and specific points in mind of who our target audience is, which is you watching now and creators in general to help them with their YouTube journey. So one question we got from Scully's House of Thrillers aren't the first words out of your mouth recorded with the metadata? I believe he's talking about the auto captioning on YouTube.
Yeah, so YouTube, as part of its processing process, is generating that auto closed captioning file, which it does look at. Nobody knows for sure. I'm just going to tell you that. Like, we've talked to YouTube experts, and I know all of them. I've talked to people at YouTube. This is kind of one of the things they really don't share a whole lot. But yes, YouTube's algorithm does look at those closed captions, just like it looks at your thumbnail, just like it looks at your title and your tags. But more importantly, beyond that, it looks at how humans are engaging with your content. Meaning, if I put your thumbnail and title in front of a subscriber or somebody that has been watching your kind of content lately, do they click on it? That kind of goes back to the chart, the impressions going to the viewers and the watch time that it leads to. If somebody sees your video on the homepage and they click, don't interact with it, that is something that YouTube takes a look at. Okay, people aren't clicking on this title and thumbnail. A step further is, once they do click on this thumbnail, how long do they watch? And that's where we get, that's where we get into audience retention. Because if somebody clicks on your thumbnail, regardless of what it is and regardless of what your title is, yeah, you got the view. But if somebody ditches it 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 20 seconds in, and it's a 9-minute video, that sends a powerful signal to YouTube that the pitch, the value you were pitching in your title and your thumbnail, did not meet the expectation of the viewer, and they left your video. Now, if they leave your video and go over somewhere else, they take note of that. If they leave your video and they close out the YouTube app or they go into another browser window, that hurts you even more because you've essentially ended the session. And that's something that we kind of know YouTube's looking at behind the curtain, and there's levers being pulled, but we don't have the data on it at all yet. So, great question. So, yes, YouTube does look at those closed captions. I personally would not recommend leaning into auto-generated captions, but in the great scheme of things, I think the captions are probably less than 5% of what YouTube looks at to kind of figure out how people are looking at interacting with your stories and how they will rank on the YouTube platform. So,
and just as kind of an important point to mention, if you are scripting, kind of what we talked about, going in with a focus, going in with, the story you wish to tell in mind, and like you have the script beforehand, you can actually edit those auto captions with that script, and then you have that subtitle data being accurate based on what you already wrote. So that goes back into what you were saying a little bit earlier, Joshua, on making sure that you are doing that research, you are doing those fundamentals.
And you brought up a really good question or a point, Andrew: focus. So there's a great book, and its title is Start with Why. And when I do YouTube consultations, this is the thing that I'm always thinking, because most channels I do a breakdown and an audit of and consult with, I have never seen them before in my life. I've probably done over 500, and there's been maybe 5 that I was aware of before I looked at them. So I, as a new potential viewer, that's why it's so valuable to get just a fresh pair of eyes in somebody that is completely separated from your content. The question I'm asking as I look at the channel is why? Why should I subscribe to this channel? Why should I click on any of these thumbnails? Why should I keep on watching this content? These are the questions that every viewer is subconsciously telling and asking themselves when they're kind of checking your video content out. And, we have very short attention spans. YouTube's a great platform, but there's like 400 hours of content being uploaded every second. I got that entire suggested video feed right next to the video I'm currently watching, your video, and I see the creators I always watch. So I'm thinking, why should I keep on watching this video and not go over to one of my favorite creators at this point in time and watch their content because I know what they're all about? So one of the biggest and first things, we actually kind of jumped to number two really quick, but the most important thing is you have to start with why. And this ultimately boils down to your target audience and your value proposition. Who are you really talking to? In today, 2019, it is extremely hard to be a variety YouTube channel right now. They do grow, they do exist, but if you look at most of the variety channels, even they tend to stick to about 3 to 7 different forms of content. And you also have to kind of do the research behind the channel. And what you will learn really quickly is most of these variety channels are actually really large companies that have entire content teams working for them, like BuzzFeed. BuzzFeed has employs, well, not so many anymore, but hundreds of people that are every day, their sole purpose and job is to create content that will entertain people. So if you, a one-man show, a normal YouTuber like all of us mere mortals are, sit here and you're trying to do variety content, the people watching your content don't really understand what they're getting. And more importantly, the algorithm doesn't understand who you are and who you're trying to talk to. If you guys make that absolutely clear in your content, your metadata, your show format, all these things I'm going to talk about, YouTube is going to identify other channels that you are like and identify your potential audience. Going back again to the reached audience, the impressions and the viewers, when you see that top number, it's like, yeah, impressions. I put your thumbnail in front of 60,000, 700,000, 1.5 million people. YouTube is not randomly putting that thumbnail in front of people. It's putting that thumbnail in front of people it knows watches the content you're producing. So you get an idea of how big your audience is. And that's very impression that it's very important that you're creating content for that very specific audience. I just launched my YouTube channel. And I didn't launch a channel for many years because there was already a TubeBuddy, there was already a Daryl Eves, there was already a Tim Schmoyer. And then in more recent years, Nick Ninham and Brian G. Johnson have come out of kind of nowhere, actually. And like they are rocking it. So I didn't start a channel because I'm like, I'm just another YouTube expert that's already behind. What can I offer that these guys already aren't doing on an amazing scale? And I finally figured it out about 6 months ago, is while everybody's talking to creators, for the most of my professional life, I've dealt with brands. And I work with a lot of brands that are trying to figure out this YouTube thing. And you'd be amazed how many really large companies are now finally starting to come to us and say, yeah, like we've heard about this YouTube thing and we think we're going to give it a shot. And we're like, congratulations, it's been around for 14 years, welcome to 2005. So there's still a lot of people. So my channel, while creators can get a lot of value from the content I'm putting out, I'm mainly talking to brands, and that's how I've distinguished myself both in my target audience and the value, because a brand's needs are different from a normal creator. There is some cross-pollination, and my hope, dreams, desire for everybody watching is that you will one day think of your channel as a brand and be at the point where you're getting sponsorships, you have your own products and services, you have people coming to your live events, and then you are not just a YouTube creator at that point, you're a brand. And I think every channel needs to start thinking of themselves as a brand.
And I love that point. And I also have a point here from Steel City Man who says it all used to be fun. It's now so complex. A lot of creators kind of feel that way. So it's one thing to feel that way. From your standpoint, as someone who's been in the industry, someone who's kind of seen those changes over time, what are your thought process on it used to be so much fun, now it's really complex? Do you think this was kind of the natural evolution, or do you think that it can still be fun, you just need to think about it in a new way? So I'm kind of curious your thoughts.
I definitely think it's a mindset thing. If you're not enjoying your content and creating your content, and if you're not getting to your why, like, why are you doing this? If you're just doing this to get millions of subscribers and be internet famous and sell some t-shirts, that's probably not the motivation that you need to have the long haul. Like, I want to help brands grow their business so they make more money and pump it into the US economy and help other entrepreneurs just like me. Like, that's a passion of mine, and I've just always been on that creative analytical side to where I'm not just the guy with the video camera that can shoot really pretty shots, but I'm also the guy that can think of, oh, what's your marketing, like, who are we doing this, and like what does that person need, what problem do we need to solve with them, and then using video and storytelling to engage that person and teach them how we can solve their problem in a story format so we can help build their audience. So I definitely think a lot of YouTubers, they get really worked up about the algorithm. You know, everybody's talking about it. I really don't like to say the A word on my channel, because if you think about it, the YouTube algorithm and all the bots that are working, they are not against you. And that's the first point you have to do to change your mindset. They
Truth.
are really here just to help you and grow your channel, because YouTube's goal is to keep as many users on their platform for as long as possible. Yes, they do that so they can sell at more ads to them, but YouTube does not want you to fail. And so if you kind of look at these metrics, they will help you really start building your audience and start getting more views, more watch time, and more things like that. So just change your mindset and realize that, you know, the algorithm, YouTube, you know, the CEO, like whoever you think of that makes it not fun anymore, you need to change your mindset and realize, you know what, I just need to understand how the platform works today and just create content for that. And that doesn't mean following trends. It just means figuring out who your audience is and creating content that both you love and your audience loves to watch, because it's actually more important to have, you know, 500,000 subscribers that are really fanatics than it is to have 500,000 passive subscribers.
And I think that's an important point, is like you want those active subscribers. And I think people don't recognize that they do want that activity. Like you were talking a little bit earlier about, you know, when people are watching a video that you want them to watch more of it. And I think most people don't realize that they should rather have 10 people who watch the video all the way through than 1,000 people that watch 3 minutes or 3 seconds of a video and click off. So I think that's also a way you can look at your subscriber. You want to focus on that active, engaged user. Now, how are some ways people can start cultivating those active, engaged users? Because a lot of people create content, but they can't seem to keep getting people to come back. So what is your advice kind of on that, Josh? Sure.
Yeah, so this is kind of where we get into the content. And the number one thing that we can control, that all of us have our control over, and that YouTube just looks at, is our programming. Essentially, we need to figure out who we're talking to and what value, what makes us different and unique in that niche. And then also, the second thing is then the programming. How often am I creating content? You know, when I was growing up, I'm an 80s child, but when I was in elementary school, I knew that at 5 o'clock Central, every weekday, I was home. And it wasn't because of dinner or anything like that. I knew it was because The Simpsons was airing on Fox, and I had to watch that show. And me and all my friends were pre-programmed that way because we knew it was something that was going to happen every day, Monday through Friday at 5. And you had to watch it. This was before DVRs, like before they started putting it out on DVD. DVD
Before
wasn't.
Disney owned them.
Yeah, and it's like if you were not there and you missed that episode, it was gone forever. You know, and I had nothing to talk about at the bus stop or during lunch because that's what everybody talked about. You know, for later generations, it was The Office. Now it was like The Sopranos or Game of Thrones. I was talking to my 65-year-old neighbor last night, and he's like, "So, you watching Game of Thrones tonight?" And I'm like, "You even know what that is?" Like, him and his wife were just hanging out, drinking wine, waiting for Game of Thrones to premiere. And because they knew that it was premiering that time. So, think about your programming schedule. This goes back a lot of experts and people on this channel. They call it consistency. Are you Monday? Are you once a week? Are you once a month? Are you 3 times a week? Are you daily? And a lot of people kind of jumped on the daily bandwagon when it came to programming a few years ago. And the reality of that is not every channel, not every audience, and not every creator needs to create daily content. Some of my favorite channels that I still watch that have been around for 4 or 5 years are still only putting out one video a month. And it gets millions of views and it just goes viral every time because they've figured out exactly what their format is and who they're talking to. Which brings me to the next kind of point real quick is format. And I'm actually going to start sharing my screen.
All right, and we'll be transitioning over so you can see Joshua's screen. Go for it.
And hopefully everybody can see this. So when
Please
it
let us
comes
know
to
if you can see his screen really quick just before we go in, but please continue on to your point, Joshua.
yeah, so real quick, everybody knows who Phil DeFranco is. He's just been one of these all-time creators. And when you start talking about format, I know every single one of Phil DeFranco's show is going to be him in front of a camera, exactly what I'm doing. And the first thing out of his mouth is going to be, "Good morning, you beautiful bastards," because that's his go-to line. And his format, his topic is always the same. He's a daily show and he's always sitting here just giving commentary in his studio. His background changes every once in a while, but it's a familiar background. And he talks about what's going on in the news. And he's kind of built himself up to be this kind of independent social media news anchor guy. And he tries to give both sides of the stories. I even know as soon as I see a thumbnail, it's a Phil DeFranco thumbnail because he has the same red background and it's always him front and center with a really expressive face. And then whatever the headline, the lead stories are, he always photoshops in those creators. Like PewDiePie T-Series, he doesn't show like the T-Series logo. He shows PewDiePie because every person in marketing, every person on YouTube recognizes who PewDiePie is. So his format is consistent. Every time I click on one of his shows, his videos, I know exactly what I'm getting into. They're all about 10 to 15 minutes. I know that if I go down into his links, I can find some sort of bonus video that he keeps unlisted for his avid fans. I know this format. He's going to be talking about news stuff. He's never going to surprise me. And one morning, I'm going to click on his thumbnail, and he's going to be like, "You know what, guys, we're doing something. Today's is all about cooking with Phil, and he's stirring a cake mix. He's going to teach me how to cook a cake." Now, Phil could do that because he has 6.3 million subscribers. He's been doing it for 10 years, and he has a very, very loyal audience. So he would get views on that. But most of us can't. We have to stay in our niche and our format. And our format can be everything from our topic, the length. Do we shoot content and then edit it and upload it to YouTube? Do we do a live stream like this? What's the topic about? What is the overall tone? Are there certain graphics? Are there certain music? Peter McKinnon, for as much as I watch his content, he is the only guy where I will watch his intro because I love rock music. And as soon as he's like, "It's 2 Minute Tuesday," it goes into that heavy rock music and I start jamming out because that's what I used to listen to in high school. And it takes me back to that time period and it amps me up. So, so you have your programming, like how often in the show format. Another example that we can look at, I was trying to pick some different people here, is Dude Perfect. Dude Perfect's right up the street from me here in Dallas. They've been going crazy. They have an amazing story, but every time you watch their videos, you know exactly what it is. It's these 5 guys that are all adults that are avid sports fans, and they're doing trick shots. It's basically just like a compilation, a listicle video of every video. woo, we're going to go in and this is the so and so shot. And then they go wide and they show like this amazing shot, like they're flying airplanes, they're shooting AR-15s out of helicopters. They're on a 20-story building throwing a basketball over and watching it go through the hoop, and every guy that watches their content loves to have like those trick shots and those sports fanatics. It's what they do. And even if you look at their content now, you can see that they're starting to diversify. Of course, they're on network television on this little channel that a lot of people don't watch, but they have these a whole like overtime series and then these battle series. They have their own podcast now where it's all five of the guys just doing exactly like we're doing right now, live, talking about it because their audience is so large. They're trying to build that relationship with the audience. But most people know if I'm going to watch a do perfect thing, Super Bowl stadium trick shots, footballs hitting balloons. Like I know exactly what I'm going to get in. They know the content they're creating for their audience.
And here's a question. You were talking about audience from our audience, and the question is, will this format idea also help children's channels?
Yes, exactly. So children channels are huge niches, but are you an educational channel? Are you teaching children like colors and stuff like this? One of the channels I worked with last year was Goo Goo Colors. And I was talking to the guy, and it was actually like his second or third time starting a channel and getting it over 1 million subscribers. But what he was doing, and I would definitely, if you're in a children's niche, look at his stuff. His format is it's his mom, or I'm sorry, his wife and his little son right now. And his son has a magical wand that gets him into trouble every time and they can do everything he wants, and the mom has to kind of come in and make sure that he's not using this wand to do anything, and it just entertains colors. I have an 18-month-old son. Baby shark finally invaded our home about 3 weeks
Oh
ago.
gosh.
Yeah, oh, man. But that entire ping pong channel is just nothing but catchy nursery rhymes because music has an insane replay value. There's a reason if you go look on Social Blade and you look at the top 100 channels, I think the last time I counted 73 of them are music artists, because as soon as an artist puts out a song that's catchy and people want to listen to, they just go to YouTube, and even though that song's like 4.5 minutes long, they'll listen to it 10 times in one day, and it just creates insane amount of watch time. So the format can absolutely help regardless of vertical. You just kind of have to find out what your format is.
And vertical meaning channel type, essentially.
Yeah, so like, are you a cooking? Are you DIY? Are you commentary? Do you travel vlog? Are you a kids channel? Do you teach somebody how to play piano? Are you ASMR? All of that is different verticals. One thing this might be a little small. If you guys go in the description, there's a bit.ly link to this doc that you guys can all get for free. Just go and download it. But I captured this really quickly from an audit I did, and I'll blow it up as much as I can. But you guys can go in the description, find this, and kind of keep these examples and this for you guys. But this is a channel that I worked on about 2 years ago, and his name's Leonhardt. And he's a guy that's about 32 years old, and all he does, his format was Pokemon unboxing. He didn't play the game, he didn't play the video games, he didn't talk about the movies. He just literally went to Walmart, Target, comic book stores that are local, picked up the box, the Pokemon playing cards, which was like really big when I was in junior high. And he sits there and on a live video opens them up, and he was doing it every day, all day. And he was growing his channel. At the time when we were working with him, I think he had just crossed 300,000 subscribers. And one of his things was like, I'm starting to get burnt out. Like, I love unboxing, and I'm starting to do collaboration. He'd reached out to other Pokemon unboxing channels and was kind of doing like a weekly challenge video with some of them. But he's like, what else can I do? And when I kind of took a step back and I looked at the whole universe, I gave him this graphic. I was like, dude, the Pokemon universe is so large. And right now you're only kind of talking about the cards. And even when you talk about the cards, all you're doing is unboxing them and talking about like how special they are, like why they're rare or whatever like that. was like, you had movies coming out. Detective Pikachu is just now starting to release trailers, but it had been teased 2 years ago. And I told him, you need to absolutely start talking about Detective Pikachu and building up all of that content way before any other movie channel starts talking about him. So that way, when it comes out, you can actually rank for it.
So
You
you
know,
were telling him to make sure that he was ahead of the curve of the trend, essentially.
yeah, way ahead, like a year and a half. And this is what I always tell anytime I consult with like a movie channel of somebody that loves cinema stuff. I say, go on IMDb, go a year and a half to 2 years out and figure out what has already been announced by a studio and start creating content there. One of my partners I used to work with had kind of like a geek channel, and he started talking about Power Rangers, the movie that came out in 2017, I think, or 15, I don't remember. But he like loved that from his childhood. And as soon as it was announced, he started talking about it almost on a bi-weekly basis on his channel. And so like when it actually came out and people were reacting to the movie trailer, he was in a cabin in Oklahoma and just shot a reaction on his cell phone and uploaded it to YouTube. But because he had that authority, his audience, he had found that audience ahead of time, and it was him reacting to it, he actually got like 10,000 views off of that one video that was shot on his cell phone in the middle of nowhere. So it's kind of going into programming, and your content strategy is, can you diversify your content? If I'm a cooking channel that does baking, is there anything else that I can maybe step into and diversify? Maybe it's 5-minute recipes. Maybe it's gluten free or sugar free or vegan or whatever fad diet's going on, desserts. Maybe it's different pairings. Angry Orchard right now is running an amazing campaign because, and they're a cider company up in Ohio, but they can't advertise. So they just basically created a campaign where you can scan their bottle, because they have about 6 different kind of ciders they make. And when you scan the label on the bottle, it goes off to their website and they talk
Smart.
about food pairings. So it's like, oh, you're drinking our original cider. Some of the best cider pairings are actually like barbecue, and they give you a recipe and a how-to video of how to make pulled pork sliders. And they're creating content for their fans. But most people would think, oh, a beer company, a cider company, they're just going to talk about cider. They're like, no, we're going to talk about recipes. We're going to talk about grilling and all these different things.
So they're going beyond their perceived value.
And going into other niches. So I'm
Smart.
just scrolling up real quick. And then the next thing is kind of, I had epic rap battles in here. It's an amazing channel. Music, really thought out scripts, stories, dance choreography, original music. And I was looking at their channel. They still only make one video a month, and they're going strong. So if you guys want to check that out, that channels like that basically break the mold of, well, I have to be doing weekly or daily or twice or 3 times or every seventh Sunday of the month, kind of things that get spread across Reddit and stuff like that. As long as you're creating high quality content and it's something that's consistent and you found your audience, they will do it. Um, when we kind of jumped ahead and we talked about impressions a lot here. This is a channel that I kind of found during a consultation that I had never heard of. And going to, when do you pitch your story? As soon as somebody sees your title and your thumbnail. And then having that branding so you get that click. And this is all coming about the thumbnails. This channel has amazing thumbnails. So I'm just going to kind of keep it here. But if you look at what this channel is basically all about is it's an inspiration channel. They have about 4 to 5 voiceover artists that read these really dynamic scripts that will motivate you, to study, to excel, to be better at sports, whatever. And for the most part, about 97% of all their content is these voiceovers with very powerful royalty-free music underneath them, and they use nothing but stock photos and video to tell all of their stories. So there's absolutely nobody on camera. There's, a few guys that have really powerful voices doing it. I think they have one female voiceover artist, but they're just telling these stories and they're really encouraging people. But if you look at their entire brand, you can see from their channel art to their icon and even down to their thumbnails.
Could you close the YouTube on the side so it's a little bit larger for the
Oh,
audience?
sorry, thank
No
you.
worries.
So if we look at, the channel art here, the icon, and then start looking at all of these common elements across their content, you can see that they have a visual brand. So their color theme, white and this bright blue, all of their thumbnails, they're putting these colors into it. For the most part, like I said, 97% of all their thumbnails and all their videos are stock footage. They're using stock photos, but you can see that they're using really dynamic emotions. Every 20-year-old must watch this. It's a close up of a woman crying. There's obviously something going on. This photo right here, you can see how they're using like a vignette. They're blurring out everything to create focus on her face, and they actually have a lot of text there. This one, get focused and get the work, blah, 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 something, something, something. I love this thumbnail because they're doing everything. I can see this guy's eyes. He has a face right up here. He's dynamic. Get it done. Just that really powerful statement to help tell the story. And you notice, even though they're using text in the thumbnail, they're not repeating the title like a lot of us do. There's no place on YouTube where the title and the thumbnail do not display together. There's actually one. It's at the very end of your end screen for about a millisecond before the autoplay loads and plays the next video if you don't make a choice. But at that point, most of all of us are gone, so it's irrelevant. But get focused and get to work. This guy, he looks very successful, kind of Mad Men, eyes that are staring at me like a hawk. They photoshopped it. It's really dramatic. And you can even see over in here, they're adding some more of that blue element. That's not on that stock photo. I've actually found this stock photo. It's just plain. They photoshopped it in a background and they put that blue flare in there to add some of their visual brand. And these thumbnails are incredibly powerful. So when you sit there and look at your videos, go into Studio Beta and look at your most recent video and look at the impressions. I would look at it for the first 48 hours after you release the video, and then 7 days, and then about 10 days. Because in my experience, usually after about 10 days, that's the half-life for most videos for most YouTube creators. There are exceptions to the rules. And what I mean by that is after about 10 days, you've put out another piece of content. So YouTube's promoting that a little bit more. And within about 10 days, YouTube knows if this audience, through the audience retention metrics and the impressions metrics, if people are clicking on this thumbnail, and if they're clicking, how long are they watching? If it's a successful video for you, meaning a lot of people are clicking through, you have a really high click-through rate, and then people are watching around 60 to 70, maybe even 80% of the video, that video overall will do better on your channel and give you more views and more watch time for the life of your channel until you create a new video. Now, I know what everybody's probably saying right now in the chat, what's a good click-through rate? So don't think of what's the good. Click-through rate is something that you always have to be improving. If you're at 3 to 5, which is where most of us that I look at are at, get it up to 10. If you're at 10, get it to 15, because this is something that you can constantly test, especially if you have TubeBuddy Legend, because you can do A/B testing and get a higher click-through rate. Now, one thing to note when you're looking at the data, I think right now, and Andrew, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe when you're looking at these charts right now, it does not go past 90 days. So after 90 days, if you do a custom range longer than that, it will say data not provided. So they're only sampling the most recent 90 days.
For what specifically?
Yeah, for each video specifically. And then the other thing that you have to also take into account is the longer that video's been out, it's a weighted kind of metric. So your first 24 or 48 hours, you may have an insane click through rate of like 56%, but you've only had like 200 people watch it. So as it's been out there longer and more people have watched it and there's been more impressions, that click through rate is going to go down and kind of average out. So
Absolutely.
sometimes people are like, I have this video and it has like 68% click through rate. I think I'm going to go viral. Like, what should I do? And I go and look at the video and I'm like, hold your horses. It's only been like 36 hours, bro. Like, let's just wait like 7 to 10 days and see where it's at, because that 57 is going to go down to like 7 or 8%, which is still really good. But don't think of YouTube as this certain benchmark that I just have to check. Okay, I get 60% watch time. I have an 8% click through rate. I'm doing videos once a week. It's
So
not that you're checking. You always have to be testing.
absolutely. And if you look at it as like I'm hitting the bare analytical data points, then you could potentially be failing to connect with your core audience, which in the end is what YouTube is trying to do. They're trying to serve you to an audience. So if all you're doing is trying to hit numbers, but you're failing to connect to the audience, then you may be able to build a channel, but it may not be what you want it to be.
Exactly. So, and like real quick, since it's me and Andrew, I'm going to bring up our video and analytics real quick here.
Oh no.
Yeah. Don't judge us. That's all I'm going to say. So, and granted, this was a really quick video.
We know you want to grow on YouTube, and here's a
Oh
guy
gosh,
that
it's me. I'm sorry.
My screen is so large, I have to scroll so much to hit that pause button. So we'll just look at this video. And granted, this was just a real quick video. This was for a very niche, like we were putting this out to the TubeBuddy audience just to kind of launch and soft launch our consultation thing that we're doing now for TubeBuddy members.
Which you can
So-
learn about in the ticker tape or in the description down below.
So if you look at this, if we wanted to do better, and next time what we should have done is maybe taken 5 seconds to think instead of doing this 10 minutes in between sessions and saying, okay, what's a really powerful story out of the 500 plus channels that I've consulted with? Like I have testimonials where people are like, oh man, I'm getting like 50,000 views on average now, and I used to be at 10, and things like that. I should have gone right into a testimonial like that and told a story of how a channel grew using the techniques that I kind of talk about in this thing, but we didn't do that. So this video is basically like, hey, we have a new service. This is what it's about. Here's kind of like how it can help you. And here's where you can go to get new information. That's all we were trying to do. So it's not like a universal, YouTube video. But what we can see right now is most people watched about 1:20 of, what was it, like 3-minute videos. So we got about 40%. For a video like this, I'm very happy with that organically. But we can see, so like which one are we on? My 5th tip is basically looking at the audience retention. And if you look what I did, I searched for one very specific video. I'm not looking at the channel universally. I'm looking at each specific video. So I tell every person I work with, go back and look at the last 10 videos you've put out and analyze this audience retention graph and kind of figure it out. The first thing I look at is, what's the first 20 seconds look like? How much of the audience do you lose within that first 10 to 30 seconds, depending on what the content is? If we're at, let's go to 20%, we're right here at 57%. I probably know why, because it's my face and nobody wants to look at me. I accept that. But what could we have done? Like the pitch where Andrew says like, hey, you all want to grow your channels and we can teach you better, very basic pitch. We could have said something like, have you been on YouTube for many years and you're struggling to grow your subscribers and find your audience and make this a full-time career? We're going to talk to somebody that can help you with that. All right, that's all of us. Like we all need help on YouTube. That catches my attention and I'm going to do that. And then we would have come back and I could have been more concise on basically, hey, my name's Joshua. I've been a content creator for 10 years. For the last 5 years, I've been helping very large brands on YouTube grow their audience, create original content, and increase all of their YouTube metrics so their channel grows organically. And now I'm helping creators. I could have said that all in there, and we could have gotten to a little bit more of the banter of what we did. So look at that first 10 to 30 seconds and how you're pitching the video. Think about the title and the thumbnail up here. So we have, YouTube consultations with Joshua Wethngton. That's me on there. Here's some TubeBuddy branding. Now, maybe we could have knocked out the background and we could have had, me over here, but we could have done like this little growth line behind me. And our title could have been like, learn how to grow YouTube in a private session, or get your personal YouTube coach, something like that, that we could have just sat there and done. Sorry, Andrew, I'm not like bashing all your work.
No, he's just bashing all my work live. It's fine. I'll just go cry.
I'm just saying, like, even us, the guys that sit here and look at this and talk and do live streams all the time, hindsight is always 2020. We can always do better. So look at your title, look at your thumbnail, and then look at your audience retention. We're talking about YouTube consultations. I'm willing to bet that by the first 20 minutes, we said exactly what this video is about. And we knew that the majority of the audience was not going to be interested in this right away. So we just knew that going in. We had that expectation with this video. But if you're not getting to your story and you're losing a lot of your audience, figure out and self-audit yourself how you can do that. So some of my practical advice, if you kind of just look in my sheet here, are you teasing the topic? Are you setting it up? Whatever that title and thumbnail about, are we reaffirming that that's what this video is all about? This goes across an entertainment, this goes across how-to, kids, adults, commentary. Like the entire 15 seconds all basically is about pitching the value of your story and why somebody like clicked on your title and thumbnail and reaffirming that. Like if you're a cooking channel or you're building something, maybe we need to show the final product. A lot of cooking channels do this. They show this beautiful cake or this double bacon jalapeno cheeseburger, and they're like, I'm going to teach you how to grill this in 20 minutes, with like 10 minutes prep time and 15 minutes cooking time, and you're going to be the barbecue king of your neighborhood. And I see that big juicy cheeseburger and I want that. You put a cider next to it, even better. Vloggers are notorious for this, and this is showing the climax of the story and working backwards. So basically, what is that second act climax? What is that most intriguing thing about your story? Oh my God, there's a dead person in the forest. Or, everybody, the media thinks that I'm a racist and I support Nazis. Or, I'm using like really extreme examples. Or, hey guys, it's going to be the worst video I've ever had to make, but I need to apologize for something I said, the famous YouTube apology video. Just getting to the point and teasing that to keep people watching. And then maybe it's one of those things where, hey, I'm just saying like one or two sentences to summarize that. I have a little intro. I introduce myself. I ask people to subscribe. And then I kind of talk about the channel, maybe that value proposition and that introduction part of the thing, going to what I kind of basically, this is like the universal story structure for YouTube. Sorry about that, guys. You have your hook, you're basically like sucking people into it. You need to confirm that that title and thumbnail are absolutely what this video is about and tease the topic to keep people interested. And then a lot of people go out to some sort of branding. Peter McKinnon, 2 Minute Tuesday, Casey Neistat has that 368 intro. TubeBuddy has a nice little dun 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 tone. A lot of channels have this. This is not a requirement, though. Sometimes you can just tease the topic and then just jump cut or switch the location or the camera angle and go right into, hey, my name's Joshua and I'm here to help you grow your brand on YouTube using paid, organic, and influencer marketing so you can grow your brand and make more money. Yep, That's what my channel is all about. Hit subscribe if you're down for that. If you're a brand trying to figure this out, I'm probably the guy that you should be listening to. And then I just go straight into the story.
Here's an
So,
interesting point. Quizly and Quizzes and Tess asks, I don't know when's the best time to upload a video. So what if they do have the YouTube video structure, they're just not sure when to publish? So what would you give advice-wise then?
so TubeBuddy has a tool that kind of, based on engagement, can kind of give.
So that tool is still in development. So we
Ooh,
are still working on that. No worries.
sneak peek. Um, so there are some tools coming, but even outside of our tool, because we're just looking at data, I think that your release, your content schedule, that is something that you can program into your audience. Meaning, going back to the example of The Simpsons at 5 o'clock or Game of Thrones last night at 9 p.m., like you can program your audience by just simply stating, this is when I'm releasing my content. This is when I'm putting it out. You can communicate that in your channel art. You can communicate that in your intro, like, hey guys, I'm a sci-fi nerd and I like to talk about Battlestar Galactica. So every Tuesday night, we're talking about Battlestar at 8 o'clock Central on a live stream. So tune in every Tuesday. You can communicate it there. So I think instead of trying to figure out when's the best time, just put your foot, draw a line in the sand, and just say, for my life, this is the best time that I'm going to release content. You know, maybe you work and you're single, so your weekends are pretty free. So you have all week to create your content and edit it. And then Saturday, you can premiere it. Or maybe you need the weekend to create content and you can just release it on Tuesday. Figure out a programming schedule that will work with your life where it's at, and just your audience will learn that over time.
I think that's a great point. It's like you're setting the expectation instead of hoping that that's when people will check it out. And also another thing is, if you set that expectation, right? Like if you say that, we'll use the example at 5 p.m. your videos go live, then going forward your data will be biased on 5 p.m. being the best time to publish, because you've told your audience that that's when I go live. So they have the expectation of you going live at 5 p.m. So then your data starts skewing with what you set up. I do want to say, Joshua, we have about 8 minutes remaining.
Yep.
So you, with that, what you will. And we do have some questions in the document. So yeah.
Okay. And then, so real quick, the sixth part is, look at this, the meat of your story. So you can see we're just basically talking about a service here, so it goes down. But if you're telling a creative story, figure out what you can do to keep people from dropping off. So if you look in the document, there's a lot of different techniques. Like maybe you need to, before you even upload to YouTube, watch that edit, figure out when you get bored, and then go back into the edit and tighten it up so your story's more concise. Maybe if you're talking about, this product or something like that, you need to shoot more B-roll about that product or of that product and show it more so you can go into a montage. Maybe you can do something where you can change the pacing of your editing. And this is kind of like the flow. If I'm just talking on camera, then showing screenshot, if I were to play a video right now where it's a whole bunch of jump cuts, really fast cuts to like rock music, that would disrupt your kind of viewing pattern. And that's kind of like one of my last ideas, is doing pattern interrupts, jumping out to a meme, or a lot of skit videos do reactions and stuff like that, and they do stuff to try to jar their audience. You can interrupt the story to re-get people's attention. You can do that through music cues, sound effects. If you're vlogging and a total stranger comes up and they're like, oh my God, are you vlogging? That's so cool. Like, what's your channel? You could just like have a little impromptu interview with them and find out about their day and what's going on, and just kind of banter with them and then go back to it. But that's going to be something that jars the audience. So there's a few resources in my document, books that I definitely recommend, channels to look at. I will definitely say, for anybody that is doing educational content, go look at that How to Make Coffee video Peter McKinnon did. He has all of this stuff, and he made a very simple, basic process entertaining, and it's gone crazy. And then also for anybody that really wants to get nerdy about it, go start in looking at YouTube advertising, specifically from the Harmon brothers, the guys that did like the Squatty Potty and stuff like that. And if your first 10 to 20 seconds can be that disruptive and capture people's attention, you will grow your YouTube channel. So that's it for me. I'll end my full screen so I can go back to camera, and then I'll answer whatever questions that we can before we have to end the live stream.
All right. So the first question we have is from Abo Builds, and they ask, my last 4 YouTube videos, I've started using the same thumbnail template, which has made improvements to my CTR, but one of my videos is performing a lot higher than the others. What causes this?
So go through and look at all 4 of those videos, and I would wager that the one that's performing better probably has a higher audience retention. Meaning, your thumbnails, you're kind of creating that visual brand. People are clicking through them. It's either you'll probably have a higher click-through rate on this one, but then if, just for sake of example, all your videos are exactly 5 minutes, your other 3 might be around like 2 minutes, where this one that's performing even better is 3.5, 4, maybe even longer. The thing that we want to look at with audience retention is we know that there's kind of like one little lever that kind of pops in the algorithm, and that is if you can get people to watch past 50% on your video, that video will be promoted more organically because people are watching it longer, and that meets YouTube's goals. So I always try to tell all of my people, try to stay between 60 and 80%. That's the happy threshold that we want, because most of us are never going to get above 80%, and that's okay. Some of us will, some of us won't, but always be trying to increase that audience retention.
I think that's a really good point, and you bring up a lot of things and food for thought. So Abo Builds, I hope that answers your question. Next question we have is from Black Warrior Lores, who says, how do you marry the 3-act structure with thumbnails and tags?
So with the 3-act structure, kind of figuring out what you are and what your story is, the way I would marry it to your thumbnail is, what is essentially the climax of the story? What's the most interesting part? What's going to intrigue people to click on that thumbnail? And a lot of YouTubers just grab screenshots of their videos, they put them up, they add some text, Think of your thumbnails like a photographer thinks of a photograph. Like, go to a photography exhibit of world-renowned photographers, and you can see the stories that they're taking in their photos. You can just look at it, you feel something, what's happening. If it's a portrait, you can see like what that person is feeling, and it's invoking some sort of emotion. YouTubers need their thumbnails to do the exact same thing.
Another thing you could do, especially, is if you are into watching films, take a look at the movie posters. Like, those are designed to get people into seats. So what about movie posters got your attention? How can you make your thumbnails show that attention? Because the thumbnail, by all intents and purposes, is the movie poster for your video.
Yeah, and go watch Netflix, or so me and my wife both have our own Netflix profiles, and I regularly float between them to see what kind of thumbnails they're generating. Netflix is the king of thumbnails. Like,
and A/B testing.
Yeah, I'll look up an Avengers movie, and it's like Black Panther, and it's the guy like in his hero pose, and he's like it has Black Panther there, and he looks all buff and everything. And then I go over to my wife's account, and it shows the villain, and he's all shirtless before the fight, and he's like all muscular, and I'm like, hey, what's going on here? But she has a higher probability of clicking on that thumbnail because it shows that character in that pose than I do. So it's amazing to watch Netflix. I'm actually doing a video about that here soon.
That is awesome. But you know what else is awesome? This amazing stream. Joshua, thank you so much for your time. Everyone, we hope you enjoyed. Guys, get the links in the description if you want a consultation with Joshua. We've had it in the ticker tape this whole time. Thank you, everyone, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
See you guys.